So, Hare Krishna and Dandava Pranams. My name is Anjali. I have the pleasure in this beautiful day of Dia del Niño, Children's Day, wrapping up the month of April about child abuse prevention in the month of April, Child Abuse Prevention Month. Here on the line with me is Susan Phillips, aka Satarupa Mataji, located in Vancouver, Canada. She is a Vaishnavi and also has a distinct perspective as a social worker to be able to give us more awareness on child abuse prevention. So thank you so much, Satarupa Mataji, for being here. And I do have 3 questions for you. My first question is, what are some indicators of child abuse?
So in my experience and also with research, there are some strong indicators. Low self-esteem has been shown to be a very strong indicator. Children that, of course, are exhibiting physical, like bruises, that even damage to their bodies in private areas. Also not wanting to be touched or held, like even becoming like when you want to touch them, they'll flinch, hiding, not wanting to be around the groups of people, just wanting to isolate, or, like with being withdrawn, or also being more compliant, like being very compliant and wanting to please.
People pleasing.
Yes.
That is also an indicator. Okay.
Yeah. And also aggressiveness. I have actually personally seen this with children who have been abused, that they become the abusers. They become more aggressive, acting out, and these are all signs that you can even watch for, like if your child is doing something or you see another child doing something that's unusual behavior. So it's really important. Recently, I had a mother tell me her son disclosed potential abuse. So to be able to have that open communication with your child. I actually used to teach a program called the Circles program, and it was for children between ages of 4 and 6 or 7, teaching them about boundaries, like there's levels of people in your circle that can touch you and who can't touch you, and what their relationship is with you as a child. And that's very empowering to the child. They have a clear indication of who can do what with them. And when something is unusual or something, maybe a stranger will come or a family member will come and want to do a certain thing with the child has the red lights go off.
Good.
Yeah, just teaching your children simple things like that.
Good. And being able to teach a child those red lights, so that way they know, no, this is my identity, this is my body. I can't agree with you more. But you also have a unique perspective. I would even say more unique than I, because you've been a devotee since 1980, and you have actually been on temple grounds there in Vancouver, where there has been known cases of child abuse. And if you could be able to talk about that, and why is it more important to report child abuse than possible aparat?
So yes, I began attending the temple here in Vancouver in the late 80s, and became a temple member in 1980. And we actually had a member of the property here who was a grandfatherly figure. And, he was initiated, he was attending the morning program, he was part of the community. And, he walked with a cane, and everyone, it was very beloved to the members here. And we find out later on that, when the children, and he was a magnet for the little boys. the little boys would flock to him and follow him everywhere. And in fact, they would follow him out to the forest because we have a large property here. And no one would ever even have suspected, but there was abuse, sexual abuse happening
In the
in,
forest
in the forest here
with the
on the temple.
boys.
Yeah.
And funny, that was extremely shocking to me,
Mm.
that in my research here in the United States, 1 in 4 girls are abused, but 1 in 6 boys are also abused. And what came to the point, because everybody was seeing this grandfatherly figure with a cane, how did it go from reporting abuse, then possible aparad, to this temple devotee that was there?
You know, I was very young, and my service was traveling, doing missionary work. And, you know, I wasn't here, you know, in the community very often. Like, we would come back for the festivals and the summer festivals, but on the most part, I was on the road for 5 years. So from 1980 to 1985. So how it all came out, I don't know the whole story, but I heard years later that this was exposed. I don't know if someone on the property caught the person in the act. I'm not sure, but I heard later on in years. And I will tell you, those children that were involved with this are no longer part of the community, which is the most unfortunate. And as far as more being reporting, you know, aparad, you know, it's not just creating an offense to the abuser, who's also a Vaishnava, but these children are great Vaishnavas. These children are coming from, we don't even know their birth, that they're taking birth. But these children, I remember seeing them attending, you know, the functions. Every morning they would be there at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, dancing and singing, you know, just young children. You know, these are like little, great little souls. Like, they were like, I mean, we know from scripture and from what Prabhupada said, you know, the value. And then to have such horrendous abuse happen, this is the aparad. This is the aparad. So why we would not want to report this, I mean, it's beyond my capacity to understand that, you know, this is aparad in the greatest, the most horrific abuse. So to not report is aparad.
You
So
know what? I'm going to have to write that. To not report is aparad. And it's not just for these wonderful Vaishnav children, but if I understand you correctly, this is also abuse to the abuser, because then they're still not able to get help and get out of this. Did I get that right?
absolutely.
Okay.
A lot of these abusers, I mean, this person, we found out later, I actually found out later, the community that he came from, there was a trail of abuse that he had left. So when he came to our community, he just brought it to our community. So unfortunately, he wasn't reported for the abuse he committed in the community that he came from before he came to our community, and therefore he was able to continue. So yeah, it's a disservice to him to allow him to continue on with his aparad. You know, he's creating
Absolutely.
more for himself. So obviously this person, he needs some kind of support, some kind of counseling. He probably had abuse happen. Usually it's intergenerational, this abuse, it comes from them being abused as a child and they carry it on. So at some point we have to stop this revolving door, this continuation, and, you know, get these children who have been abused, get them support so that it can be stopped.
Absolutely. The cycle of samsara.
Yes.
And my third and final question, and to end it on a sweet note, do you have one good prevention story on this Child's Day?
So in my experience, working in child welfare or, child prevention, there wasn't a lot of happy endings or ability to prevent. Mostly it was a reported abuse and then, going in and supporting the family and, doing our best to, create the least amount of more trauma. But in my own childhood, there was 3 attempts made in my own life as a child for abuse. And one in particular stands out. I was visiting relatives here in Canada, and I was 8 years old. It was a public park, and I was down in the away from my mother and my relatives. I was playing down by this river, and it was kind of secluded. And a fellow came up to me, and he had a little boy with him, and he was talking to me and telling me how cute I was, and what I was wearing was so colorful. And I was 8 years old. I didn't think nothing of it. This was back in 1969. And for some reason or another, he squatted down and he pointed out that my legs weren't very tan, that I had very white colored legs. And then he pointed to his own legs and he was exposing himself. And for some reason or another, a person who was standing nearby must have witnessed something that felt a little bit odd and just kind of called out, is everything okay over there? And this fellow, he got up abruptly and walked away. He walked away. And I thought, my goodness, I think back, like, who knows if he would have asked me to go with him or walk in the forest? I don't know. But that someone prevented me from possible harm. And they didn't have to. They could have walked away. They could have ignored the situation, but they didn't. They stepped up. Something didn't feel right, that intuition. And we all have it. We all have that intuition. And I think it's really important that, there's been a lot of false claims called in to the Ministry of Children and Family Development here in Canada. People that maybe have a hunch and they call it in and it's investigated, and they turn out to be a false claim that it's not child abuse. But what would you do if you didn't report that? If you didn't step in, you didn't feel that hunch or that intuition that felt kind of off, you didn't actually take a step, and then you find out later that actually that child was being abused, or that child was being harmed, or that child lost his life. And you didn't get involved because you didn't want to, cause trouble or, make the family uncomfortable or whatever the reason.
Right.
You didn't take that action, and then you found out later.
Oh.
So just remember that. Important it is.
That hit me double hard. Actually, let me take that back, triple hard, because you just mentioned that there was 3 times in your life where you were being abused, and it took a total stranger that saw, because your mom didn't see, your relatives were far away, and you were already alone by the river in 1969. There's so many stories of tragedy there alone. But then somebody just very sweetly started talking to you and very sweetly found a way to expose themselves to you. And a total stranger stepped up. A total stranger followed that hunch. And you're absolutely right. I'm right there with you. Every single one of us has that intuition. And a god brother explained it to me. There's actually 2 levels of jiva hinsa, which is violence to the soul, because our souls are eternal, right? There are 2 forms of violence to the form. You can't kill it. You can definitely hurt it. The first one is, of course, the outright, very simple, demonic forces. And in our faith, of course, of the demons, Bhutana, Ravana, things like this. Pretty obvious, right? When there's something going on. But the second violence to the soul is when you know better and you do not do anything about it. When you don't do something. For example, like the example that he always likes to give is when people do parikrama around Govardhan Hill, around that little mountain. And if we do that barefoot, vulnerable. And in that case, if you see glass on the road, when you know everyone is barefoot and doing that path, and you don't take care of that glass, and somebody behind you gets hurt, you caused Jiva Himsa. You helped be part of that violence to that other soul's foot. So when I hear you as now a social worker yourself, going through those false claims and the very real ones, that you can be able to see if maybe there would have been a prior claim, to be able to catch that pattern quicker, that in itself, following that intuition, could have saved that child, that very, very valuable soul, this very, very priceless human life. I can't thank you enough, Satarupa Mataji, for giving us this gold, and especially in this day and age, and today being Child's Day. Any final words or anything that you'd like to be able to finish with?
So we all have choices in life. I learned this in my schooling. We all have choices in life, and there's three. We can do good, we can do bad, or we can do nothing. So you have a choice. Pick it. Which one? You can do good, do bad, or do nothing. So choose wisely.
Choose wisely. To be that wise. Thank you so much for your nuggets of wisdom today on Child's Day. Again, I'm Anjali, and this is with Satarupa Mataji. And have a great rest of your Saturday. Haribo.
Haribo.